Hello, in this video, I want to give you an introduction to vendor finance. This is where the seller of the property helps you actually buy the property by lending you the deposit money. So my name is Simon Zutshi. I'm the author of Property Magic, the Amazon property #1 bestseller. I'm the founder of the Property Investors Network. I've been investing for over 25 years and I've used this strategy personally. Now, bit of a health warning here. You need to make sure you do this correctly so you're not doing anything that's dodgy or could be questioned by the mortgage company. And there are some circumstances where vendor finance work. Most of the time it doesn't work. So whenever you learn a property investing tool or strategy, it's important you don't try and fix every single property with that particular tool. You know, this particular strategy, vendor finance, works in certain circumstances. Let me explain first of all the circumstances when vendor finance will work, and I'll just touch on some of the different ways that can be done. So first of all, imagine there's someone who wants to sell a property. They need to have some equity in that property. It might be that there's no mortgage at all. It's what we call unencumbered, so no loan or no mortgage on it. Or it might be something that does have a mortgage with a mortgage company. And they want to sell that property, so they're going to transfer it over to you. Now, this is a strategy where maybe, although there's equity, they want to sell, but they're not really prepared to sell at a discount. However, when they do sell, the money they make, they don't really need that money. They're just going to put it into the bank. And as we know, with bank interest rates at the moment, they're not going to make a lot of money on that deal. So the whole point about when we use any creative finance, such as vendor finance or anything else, we want to come up with a solution that not just works for us, but is also really good for the other person, the owner of the property. That's why they're going to want to do this, because it makes sense for them and makes sense for us. It's what we call an ethical win-win. It's very important that when we're speaking to a seller, we ask them great questions, we listen very carefully to what they say to us so we can identify their circumstances and work out if this is appropriate for them. There's no point you suggesting something if it's not going to work for them. They're just going to think you're a time waster. So the circumstances we're looking for: someone is motivated, they've got a property they want to sell, they don't want that property. There must be equity in the property, but they don't necessarily need all of the money from the sale. They might need some, they might need to clear a mortgage, they might need a little bit of money to do something, but if there's enough equity that they don't need, that they would otherwise put into the bank, that's when vendor finance could work for us. So there are 4 fundamental types of vendor finance. I'm going to just touch on these briefly and tell you about a resource where you can learn more about them. So the first one is where they own the property outright. There's no mortgage on the property at all. What they would do, they would agree to sell you the property. You don't get a mortgage on it at first. They will transfer the property over to you into your name, and they get a first charge on the property. So what's a first charge? Well, if you borrow money from a bank, you get a mortgage, they have a first charge on the property. That means if you default on your payment, they can take the property back. If someone's going to give you their property, you're not giving them any money at the moment, well, you know, they want to have some security. That's why we give them the first charge. And then you then pay them a monthly interest that would be maybe equivalent to having a mortgage, but is much more than they would get if they just put the money in the bank. So they get the sale done. On land registry, it transfers over to you. No money changes hands. You obviously need to pay the stamp duty and things at the time, and you just pay them a monthly fee. Now, how do you pay them back? Well, ideally it's a property where you can add value to the property. So maybe it's a house you then turn into an HMO. You're adding value to the property, you're increasing the value so that when you come to mortgage it, 6 months after you've owned it, you refinance it, pay them back all their money, you then own a property 100% with very little of your money actually invested. So that's the first way, when they don't have any mortgage at all. Now it gets a bit more complicated if they have a mortgage. If they have a mortgage, they need to get some money from the sale to clear that mortgage, okay? Because remember, the property is going to transfer over to you, their mortgage needs to be paid off. So you are going to need to get some sort of finance, okay? So what you could do is you could come to a platform like Crowd Property. So just fully declare, crowdproperty.com is one of my businesses. I'm the chairman and the major shareholder, and it's a platform that funds property deals, whether they're a development or bridging, whatever. We match people who've got money, they want to get a better return than getting in the bank, and it's a marketplace really. So we do our due diligence on the property. I say I don't actually have much to do with the day-to-day running of the business anymore. I have a team of people doing that. But they find great deals, put them on the platform, people come and lend. Now, crowd property, we're okay with vendor finance because we understand that as long as there's enough equity there to protect our lenders, we're okay if the owner lends you the deposit. So let's say a property's worth, I don't know, £200,000 and there's a mortgage of, let's say, 110,000. And that owner, they want to clear the mortgage, they want to get £10,000, but that's all they need. The remaining 80,000 is equity they're just going to put in the bank and do nothing with that. So you could come to crowd property with a deal like that and say, look, I'm buying this property, I'm buying it vendor finance, so we know what you're doing, and I'm buying for 200, that's what goes on land registry, and they might lend you, I don't know, 60% of the value, let's say, they might lend you 120. That's enough to clear the mortgage for the owner, their 110, and give them another 10,000, okay? Now, the owner, they can maybe have a restriction on that property because you still owe them the 80,000. Crowd property are really happy with the second charge or a restriction, and then you add value to the property in the same way as we talked in the first example. 6 months, 9 months later, you refinance it onto a normal mortgage and you're taking out the money to pay back the owner. Now, it might be you can't pay the owner back all the money straight away, and that's okay, because they might be happy because when you give it back to them, they're just going to stick it in the bank and get no return. They might be happy to leave some money there for maybe 5 years, getting a great return on their money that will be cheaper than if you got a mortgage without you having to put a big deposit in. And then the third and the fourth way are very similar. Basically, you buy the property at the full price, you put your deposit in, so you must have your money initially, it could be yours or someone else's, and then the third method is after the sale, in a totally unrelated transaction, once they've got all their money, they might make a loan to you or one of your businesses, and effectively you're getting the money to cover your deposit. The fourth way is maybe they've got lots of money and they decide to give you a loan before you buy their property. They might want some security on another property, of course, and then obviously you can then use that money as a deposit to buy the property from them. You would still owe the money secured on the other one, but basically you've done it using none of your own money. Again, this has to be done correctly. You need to make sure that your solicitors are aware of things so they can declare anything they need to declare, otherwise it's mortgage fraud. We're not talking about that, we're talking about doing it in a creative way that ticks all the boxes to make sure things are done correctly. I've given you a very quick overview of this. I'm doing some online training in more detail. It's completely free of charge. If you want to understand more about vendor finance and other creative ways of funding your deals, which means you can do more deals, you might want to go and check out this online training. Come and click on the link below in the description, come and register and participate in this training with me to really build your knowledge about different ways of funding your deals creatively. If you like this video, please tick the like. Put a comment below. I'd love to hear your comments about this. Remember, I have said you need to make sure you do this correctly. Most people don't know how to do it correctly. You must make sure you do things in a correct way. Subscribe to the channel as well. Maybe hit the bell icon as well, which means you're going to get notified when more videos come out so you don't miss any of this valuable content I'm giving you completely free of charge to help you on your property journey. So my name's Simon Zutshi. Do subscribe, please comment below and come and click on the link, subscribe to the further training, register for that. And as ever, I'd encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill.